A very good morning, dear students. Today we are going to start chapter 8, that is Women, Caste and Reform, part first in our civics. So, dear students, have you ever thought of how children lived about 200 years ago? Nowadays, most girls from middle class families go to school and often study with boys. On growing up, many of them go to colleges and universities and take up jobs after that. They have to be adults before they are legally married, and according to law, they can marry anyone they like from any caste and community, and widows can remarry too. All women, like all men, can vote and stand for elections. Of course, these rights are not actually enjoyed by all. Poor people have little or no access to education, and in many families, women cannot choose their husbands. 200 years ago, what was? The things was very different. Most children were married off at an early age. Both Hindu and Muslims men could marry more than one wife. In some parts of the country, widows were praised if they chose death by burning themselves on the funeral pyre of their husbands. Women who died in this manner, whether willingly or otherwise, were called sati, and meaning virtuous woman. Sati means virtuous woman. Women's rights to property were also restricted. Besides, most women had virtually no access to education, and in many parts of the country, people believed that if a woman was educated, she would become a widow. So, differences between men and women were not the only ones in society. In most religions, peoples were divided along lines of caste. Brahmins and Kshatriya considered themselves as upper castes. Others, such as traders and moneylenders, often referred to as Vaishyas, were placed after them. Then came peasants and artisans, such as weavers and potters. They were referred to as Shudras. And at the lowest rung were those who labored to keep cities and villages clean or worked at jobs that upper caste considered polluting, that is, it could lead to the loss of caste status. The upper caste also treated many of these groups at the bottom as untouchable. They were not allowed to enter temples, draw water from the wells used by the upper caste peoples, or bath in the ponds where upper caste bathed. They were seen as inferior human beings. So, over the 19th and the 20th centuries, many of these norms and perceptions slowly changed. Now, let us see what's happened. In 19th century, most girls were married off at an early ages. Sati was the common practice. Women who committed sati were considered virtuous, and the women were generally not educated due to superstitious beliefs. These were the conditions of the 19th century. Then now in 20th century, what happened? The practices of child marriage has been banned by law. The practices of sati has been banned by law, and the education is the fundamental right of all humans irrespective of their gender. So, besides women, people who belonged to the so-called lower caste also led very difficult lives. Now, lives of the so-called means lower caste people. What was happening in the 19th century? The upper caste people considered the so-called lower caste people to be untouchables. Members of the lower caste were not allowed to enter temples, or use the same wells and ponds that were used by upper caste. But in 21st century, all the things has been changed. Untouchability is banned by law and is a punishable offence. The Constitution of India guarantees equal access to public places to everyone, irrespective of their caste. Discrimination was based on caste is also punishable by law. Now, after this, the changing the condition of a woman. People who work to bring about a change in society are known as social reformers. You have heard that he is a social reformer, she is a social reformer, means people who work to bring about a change in society are known as social reformers. Some social reformers worked towards improving the condition of women in the 19th century. So, the strategies that they used to bring about reform, in first was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was a social reformer from the Bengal Presidency of British India, and he was known for his efforts to abolish the practice of sati and child marriage. If somebody asks you that who abolishes the sati and the child marriage, you will say the social reformer Raja Ram Mohan Roy. What was the strategies for reform? Advocated Western education, wrote about the plight of women, used verses from ancient scriptures to show that discriminatory practices against women were not sanctioned by them. So, now Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Who was he? He was also a social reformer from the Bengal Presidency of British India, and he was a strong advocate of widow remarriage and girls' education in India. Strategies for reform was combined and petitions the legislative councils to make widow remarriage lawful, used verses from the ancient texts to support widow remarriage, and opened the many schools for the education of girls in Calcutta. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who was he? He was also a philosopher and a social reformer. Present day, you can say it is in Gujarat. He chose to be a hermit or a sannyasi, you can say, and believed in the ideas that were described in the Vedas. Strategies for reform was promoted widow remarriage and girl child education, founded a reform association known as the Arya Samaj, which promoted Vedic values and practices. Now, Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain. She was a Bengali thinker, educator and reformer. She believed in equal rights for men and women and advocated for an equal position for them in society. And the strategies were started schools for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta, criticized conservatives' ideas about the inferiority of women through her writings. Pandita Ramabai Saraswati. She was also a scholar of Sanskrit and a social reformer from the Bombay Presidency. She worked to improve the lives of women, especially for widows. And the strategies were started a widows' home in Pune, present day you can say Pune, set up a training center for women so that they could learn skills to become financially independent. So dear students, these were the social reformers who had totally changed the conditions of the women in early 19th century. The next part of this chapter we will learn in the next session. Till then, revise all the social reformers and take care.